roll out a series of engagements for startups and early stage businesses on standards and conformity assessments because startups are also going to the market with their products, and so it is crucial for the startups to understand what is the conformity assessment structure and see whether it is a national global requirement. The national requirements are always in alignment with the global requirements. So we have sought TiE has come forward and immediately said, please do more engagements for the startups. November is the month of quality. Globally, November month is called as a quality month, and series of engagement. And every year, for the quality month, a quality day. The theme for this year is creating customer value. And so then we thought it is more appropriate to pick up this particular theme and then with the startups and bringing out maybe monthly one session on so the standards, the certifications or the accreditations, testing, inspection, all these things will be covered. So the very first speaker for the day today, we have Mr. Anil Javri. And just 1 second, let me just introduce sir to you. So Mr. Anil Javri, the ex-CEO of NABCB. NABCB is the National Accreditation Board in the country, which monitors all the certification bodies, and it is an apex body for quality in the country. Sir was the former CEO, and he visited TiE Chennai last year when he was the CEO, and he met Akhila too. And he is also a member of UNFCCC CDM accreditation panel, and he's a member of Yoga Certification Board. He's a chairman of SE, GCP, CS, and CDSCA. These are the multiple platforms offering various, where the conformity assessment advisory board sir is occupying key positions. And he is also a lead assessor in NABCB. He's a lead evaluator for APAC, APAC. And he's also an evaluator for International Accreditation Forum, which is IAF. We welcome Sir. Sir is more interested, very keen to engage with startups and participate in the startup engagement. And he published an article very recently for Startup India. It is uploaded in the Startup India's website on conformity assessments and the challenges that the startups are facing. Maybe we will share the link with you all, and you can also go through that later. So we welcome Mr. Anil Javri. Sir, you can. Over to you, sir.
Sir, I think you're muted. Yeah.
No, I am unmuted.
Sir,
Hello,
you're yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, clear, sir.
Yeah, okay. So I'll repeat again. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Rama, for inviting me. Thanks, TIE as well. I was waiting since I visited TIE way back in 2019. Finally, we are on the same platform. Thank you very much, TIE. I'm happy to be here to speak on a subject which is very dear to my heart. Incidentally, as Rama mentioned, Startup India has published this paper with the same title, Challenge of Standards and Conformity Assessment, on their portal, which all of you can access. and I'm going to speak on the same subject because I think it's important for startups to understand the challenge they will face in the market when they go into it with a new product or even with a service. So the focus is more on manufacturing, but most of the principles apply to services as well. Next. Uh, uh, in the global market, let's understand that quality is a major driver for both products and services. And sometimes I'm told, oh, quality, we'll take care of it later. But quality is to be, as we understood as engineers, quality is to be built into the design of the product itself, design of the service itself. So it is important from day one, the day you decide that you are going to go into creating a product or a service, you should start thinking about quality. Now, many products and services also have health and safety implications. They may affect the health of people, they may have affect the safety of people, and therefore it is recognized worldwide that in such areas there is need to enforce standards by law, which means make them compulsory, that you must comply with certain standards. These are now called technical regulations in the product segment. In manufacturing sector now, it's called technical regulations, or you can simply say regulations. So any product or any service, even for example, healthcare service is regulated, aviation is regulated, shipping is regulated. So there are a lot of regulations, even international regulations. And even product sectors like food is regulated, drugs, pharma is regulated, electrical appliances are regulated. Even LPG cylinders, which you were using at home or some of us are still using at home, are actually regulated by law. So this is, it's very important to understand this. Next. Internationally, there are, you know that there is WTO, World Trade Organization, which was established on 1st January 1995. It has a number of agreements. Some of those agreements are directly related to standards issues, which is called Technical Barriers to Trade, Agreement on Technical Barriers to Trade, or in short, it's called TBT Agreement. And this agreement says that member countries can impose regulations on grounds of health, safety, deceptive trade practices. Health, as you understand, health is say pharma. This is about health. Or even food is about health. Safety, LPG cylinders have to be safe, they're lying at home. Or electrical appliances, they have to be safe because they are used by common consumers. Deceptive trade practices, where trade practice may be, for example, in India, cement was adulterated. Years ago, it was hugely adulterated. So India had a regulation brought in early 80s. All cement today you will find is ISI marked, compulsory BIS certification. Or government has now decided, you know how much cheating is there in gold jewelry. So government has decided to bring in a regulation now. Hallmarking is being made compulsory. I believe from January, it was January earlier, now it's from June of next year. On the grounds of environment, we are all aware that there are environmental laws and there are requirements for even cars, etc. on the ground of environment, for the fuel also. And national security, if we have certain issues with, for example, telecom, there's a regulation has come in, which is on national security, concern about the data transfer, etc. And this WTO agreement, that is TBT agreement, also encourages the use of international standards for regulations because it is aiming at free flow of trade. So what is the belief is that if all countries adopt international standards, then the products can flow around easily in the world market. So that's the philosophy. So you should realize, first thing you should realize is as part of industry or as startups is that there are certain sectors which are amenable to regulations. They will be regulated. So if you are entering that sector, you have to be conscious that there will be compulsion on you to follow certain standards by law. And there are certain sectors which are not having health or safety or environment kind of implications, and therefore they will be driven by what are called standards. In TBT agreement, standards means voluntary standards. Compulsory standards, what was called earlier compulsory or mandatory standards, now is called technical regulations. And these requirements, these standards could be for both for products as well as for systems. So there could be product requirements, there could be requirements of quality management systems in medical devices, or HACCP in food, or GMP in drugs. So It's gone beyond now only product requirements. So you should be ready, depending on the sector you are in, that you may be subject to both kind of requirements. Now, regulations, we have to understand, the regulation requires law, it requires government to have certain powers, and therefore regulations are the responsibility of the government only. Worldwide, voluntary standards are generally driven by other than government stakeholders, industry, largely industry. But in developing countries like even India, the voluntary standards effort has been led by government, and government set up what is called BIS today. Earlier, it was called Indian Standards Institution. So that's a compulsion in developing countries. Next. So the first thing you should look at is that there is going to be domestic regulation. Domestic regulation means regulation in this country. And several sectors in India currently are regulated. For example, food is regulated. We have Food Safety and Standards Authority of India at the apex. Pharma is regulated. We have CDSCO, Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. Electronics and IT goods are regulated by MITI. Electrical appliances are regulated. LPG cylinders, as I mentioned, are regulated. Only partially medical devices are regulated. Some medical devices are regulated today. We are on the way of regulating all of them by October 2023. We are in transition right now. And by October 2023, all medical devices would be under regulation. One thing you have to realize this is India has a deficit in technical regulations. We are way below developed countries in terms of what we have regulated. But then this was recognized somewhere in mid 2017. And there's an exercise on right now to cover more and more products under regulation. So you will find that every day new products are coming in under regulation. Toys have just been brought under regulation. Machinery safety regulation is on the way. All machinery has to be safe. So there's an omnibus regulation which will cover all machinery, whether it's agricultural machinery, textile machinery, chemical machinery, whatever. Chemical management regulation is also coming. Most of these regulations are coming, let me tell you, under BIS Act. So it's very easy to go to the BIS website and see a list of standards or products which are under regulation, because they have a consolidated list. Even though issued by different ministries, you don't have to search at too many places. You just go to BIS website and look for regulations under BIS Act, and you will get the consolidated list of notifications. So it's very important as a industry to identify if your product has health or safety or environment implications. If it has, then you should be ready that there will be regulations. And if there are no regulations today, because as I said, India has a deficit, then be ready that regulation is on the way. In some time, it will be there. So you need to keep an eye on what regulations are coming up and who is regulating. Next. Once you have seen domestic regulation, now if you are ambitious and you want to go into the global market, then globally also every country has, like India has, every country has its own regulations. And typically the experience is that they are more stringent than our regulations. Our regulations are still not in every sector, meeting international standards. So you need to put in more effort to comply with the international regulations. For example, we are a huge exporter of seafood. We are successful, but very few, around 500 plants are probably exporting seafood. We are also a huge exporter of pharma, but out of so many units that we have, factories that we have, very few are exporting, but we are exporting to 200 countries. So we are successful at the same time, but we have limitations. But most sectors do struggle to export because the requirements, as I said, are more stringent than they are in the Indian market, whether it's regulation or voluntary standard. The regulations of most countries are based on international standards. But WTO agreement also say that you can have more stringent standards than international standards if there is a scientific justification. So many developed countries like, say, Japan or Australia or European Commission or USA are actually imposing standards which are more stringent than international standards. But as a thumb rule, you can say that international standards are a good way to be, having an ambition to go into the international market, and you are likely to meet most countries' regulations if you meet international standards. Next. Then come the voluntary standards. Now, typically the voluntary standards are formulated by the national standards bodies in each country. We have Bureau of Indian Standards here. But then in most countries, these are actually, as I said, the government doesn't take interest in voluntary standard setting. So they are private. But in India and in developing countries, they have a strong government connect and they are set up by government. And their international bodies are ISO and IEC. I'm sure everybody has heard of ISO. IEC is International Electrotechnical Commission. They make standards on electronics, electrical, and IT goods. And ISO, IEC have a good understanding, so they don't duplicate each other's work. So what you will face in the market is that your buyers will demand. Now, these are not compulsory by law. There's no compulsion. No country actually has made these kind of standards compulsory. But the buyers will demand. They'll say, well, are you 9000 certified? If you're in food, they'll ask, are you ISO 22000 certified? If they are very socially conscious, they'll ask, are you ISO 14001 certified, which is environment management system, or are you ISO 45001 certified, which is occupational health and safety? So you are going to face these kind of demands to you. Then there are also industry-driven standards where industry majors have come together, and in order to improve quality of their own product and the supply chain, they have created some standards. So we have something like IATF 16949 in auto sector. Anybody who is in auto sector, sooner or later will be asked to comply with IATF 16949. If you are in aerospace sector, there is something called AS 9100. If you are in telecom sector, there is something called TL 9000. These are generally variations of ISO 9001, and but they are very they have sector specific requirements added. And if you are in these sectors, you can expect, especially if you want to be in the global market, you can expect that you will be asked to comply with these kind of standards. So if you are looking for voluntary standards, the first place to go to is usually best is to go to BIS. Look at the BIS website whether BIS has those standards. Incidentally, BIS has 20,000 standards, 20,000 plus standards. 60% of them are product standards. So nearly 12,000 products are covered by standards in BIS. And then against BIS standards, BIS also offers the service of certification. So you can, for domestic market especially, if you are in the domestic market and you want an independent validation of your product, it's good to go to BIS, look at their standard, and then go to BIS for certification as well. You can use the ISA mark on your product, and you can market your product that it is certified. Third-party certification is there. Next. There is another breed of standards which was earlier called private standards. In the last 5 years or so, it has changed its name to private sustainability standards. It's even called voluntary sustainability standards. Now, these are standards made by absolutely private players. They are made by stakeholders. They are made by retailers, for example. They are made by NGOs. And they may not be very transparent or participatory, but they are there. They are being used because some people may want to protect themselves against liability. In Western countries, liability risks are very strong. So they want to make doubly sure that what product they are selling from their stores are good products and they will not get into trouble. It could be about reputational risk. You may face a risk of your reputation being challenged if somebody writes in the newspaper that okay, XYZ company is using products or sourcing products from India where there is child labor, etc. So there are issues, social issues. There are concerns about child labor. There are concerns about fair wages. Are you paying fair wages to your workers? Are you taking care of your worker safety? So there are standards which are taking care of these kind of issues, and they have become pretty popular in the market. And if you think if you are in a regulated sector, this problem would not be there. No, sir. You are, even in food, there are a number of voluntary standards in the market, and depending on where you want to export, you will be asked to comply with one standard or the other. So it's a very interesting situation, or rather tough situation for industry, that you comply with the regulation of that country in food, because you can't enter that market unless you comply with the regulation. And once you have complied with the regulation, then the buyer tells you, well, sir, can you show us BRC certification or FSSC 22000 certification? That's what we need, otherwise we won't buy from you. So there are several examples. In fact, there is an organization called International Trade Center. And if you go to their website, there are nearly 300 such schemes or standards listed there in various sectors. They are in food, they are in agriculture, they are sector neutral. For example, SA 8000, social accountability 8000 can be applied anywhere. Many of them are sector specific, like RAP for textiles. So this is a very growing breed, and more sustainability standards are coming into the market and being demanded by the buyers. Next. Now, once you have, so clearly there are three kinds of challenges you meet as far as product requirements are concerned. You ought to have meet the regulations which are by law. You need to meet this known voluntary standards like ISO 9000, ISO 45,000, etc. And these private standards, number of them, depending on the market you are in, depending on what your buyer wants. But if you think that is enough, that's actually not enough. Another thing which comes into play is how do you demonstrate compliance to these standards? So if you are meeting these standards, good, but that's not enough. So then comes into play what is called conformity assessment, which means either inspection or testing or certification or a combination. So some buyer may tell you, please, can you show me a test report and show that your product complies with this standard? You will have to show a test report. Somebody may say, no, we will put our own inspection body that will go and inspect your product and then it will clear it and then we'll buy it. Others may say, if you have a third-party certification, if you have a 9000 certification or FSSC or IATF, etc. So there are a variety of models available now. As far as this business is concerned, conformity assessment, there is no single international standard. There are a variety of models available. You can do simply type testing that, okay, if that design is okay, I am okay with that. I don't have to see anything further. Somebody says, I would like to have a report for every consignment you are sending me, please send me a report. A third person says, no, I would like to put my inspection agency to inspect the products before I accept them. So this will continue. There's not going to be a single model. And depending on risk, buyers would or even regulators would prescribe different kinds of conformity. In a regulation, it's called conformity assessment procedure. So regulators will prescribe different procedures. Like for medical devices, they say class A, okay, no audit needed. Class B, we want an audit from notified body. Class C, we will come ourselves. So these are risk-based approaches which are adopted internationally. Next. So here comes the role of accreditation. I'm sure there is a speaker, Annie, who is speaking after me, and she will probably speak more about it. But just a broad overview that how do you trust an inspection body or a certification body or a lab, it is competent or not. So there's a discipline called accreditation, which is about testing competence of these bodies. So and these are done as per common international standards of ISO. In India, we have NABCB, which I was CEO of, which is accredits certification and inspection bodies. We have NABL, which accredits labs. And these are part of today of a larger organization called Quality Council of India, which is in turn part of DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. There are accreditation bodies all around the country, all around the world. Some countries have by law adopted a method of national accreditation bodies like Europe. And in some countries like US, they are private and there are a number of them. But most of the countries around the world, you will find that they are actually governmental. And these accreditation bodies facilitate acceptance of test reports and inspection reports and certification around the world because they are based on common standards. Next. So international system is that at the apex, there is an international accreditation forum. As Rama mentioned that I am an IF evaluator. On behalf of IF, I go and evaluate regions. So there is IAF for certification and for ILAC, ILAC is there for inspection and labs. Then there are regional bodies broadly for each continent. So Asia Pacific, APAC, which again Rama mentioned in my introduction. APAC is for Asia Pacific region. European Accreditation Corporation has its own. EA, both the Americas put together have IAAC. Africa has African Accreditation Corporation. Then there's Arab countries have got together. And these countries have a system of mutual recognition arrangement. They evaluate the accreditation bodies. IF evaluates the regional bodies. The regional bodies evaluate the individual accreditation bodies. The accreditation bodies evaluate the certification bodies, labs, and inspection bodies. The certification bodies and labs evaluate or test the product of or service of manufacturers. The whole chain is based on evaluation. This is a voluntary system, purely voluntary. IAF and ILAC are just associations, in a way private. But lots of governments in free trade agreements are recognizing these, and these are a basis of free flow of goods. So if your product meets international standard and your testing is also based on international standards, then it can be accepted worldwide. That's the concept which is being promoted. Next. This is a pictorial depiction of the same thing. At the top are IF and ILAC. Three regions I have shown for the want of space. So IF actually evaluates these regions. These regions actually evaluate individual accreditation bodies as per ISO 17011. There is a standard for accreditation bodies. The accreditation bodies actually evaluate certification bodies, labs, or inspection bodies as per relevant standard. There are a number of them. Like 1720 is for inspection, 1725 is for labs, 1721 is for management system certification, 17065 is for product process certification, 1724 is for personal certification. And then at the bottom is the either the product or service or the organization which is tested or evaluated or certified or inspected. And if this standard at the bottom is international like ISO 9001, then you can imagine ISO 9001 certificate issued by a certification body, which is accredited by this accreditation body, which is in turn evaluated by APAC, which in turn is evaluated by IAF. The whole system ensures that your 9001 certificate is internationally acceptable. And that's how this system works and makes the certificate acceptable internationally. Next. Or even test report internationally. One study which has been done in WTO has shown that a lot of trade issues are raised in WTO TBT committee. And this study gives a good indication of the value of conformity assessment, because it says that 30% of the trade concerns were based on standards, 70% were based actually on conformity assessment procedure, not on standards. And when you think of it, it's understandable that if standards are international for a product, then everybody will accept the standard and product can meet one single standard. But when it comes to conformity assessment, as I told you, there are a number of models available and there's going to be different models and there's going to be problem. So there are many countries prescribing different kinds of conformity assessment models, and they make life difficult, in fact, by using these different models also. US FDA says we are going to evaluate the accreditation body in every country. Imagine. So they will come to India and evaluate NABCB and NABL before they accept our report. So different regulators are, using these kind of methods to even sort of impede trade. Next. So that's why it's very important for you to understand that when you go to a lab, when you go for certification, when you go for inspection, you go to an accredited body. There are a whole lot of unaccredited bodies, unauthorized bodies, and my colleague, former colleague Annie, will speak about that. They are operating in this country, and it's very easy to be duped by certificates which are unauthentic, and sooner or later you will be found out that this certificate is unauthentic. So it's best to go for this system of IF and ILAC. Make sure that you go to a certification body or an inspection body or a lab which is accredited under this system. Next. So finally, this is, I think, the last slide I have. So finally, in a nutshell, what should you do? If you are getting into the industry, first thing is you have to recognize, identify whether your product belongs to the regulated sector or not. If it belongs to the regulated sector, follow the regulation. The regulations will have both product requirements, may have sometimes requirements like QMS or WHO GMP or whatever. And the procedure for compliance also is laid down in the regulations. How to demonstrate compliance, whether only testing is enough. With a test report, you can go, for example, in electronics and IT products, with a test report, you can go. For cement, you will be inspected by BIS and then certification will be granted. And you should be clear that if your product has health or safety or even environment kind of considerations, it would, if today it is not regulated, tomorrow it is going to get regulated. So you might as well be mentally prepared and keep an eye on when it gets regulated. Second, despite meeting regulations or in sectors which are not amenable to regulations, there will be demand for voluntary standards or private standards. And you will have to identify. That will come only from identifying in the market. What is the market asking? What is your buyer asking? And the only good part of it is that you have a choice. If you feel that it's too expensive to get a voluntary certification and you don't want to sell to that buyer, you can move away and sell to another buyer. But as far as regulations are concerned, please remember you have no choice. You have to meet, otherwise you are illegal. And I mean, one good tip would be that if you are looking for domestic market and you're looking for products, especially product certification of your product, it's good to go to BIS. But if you're looking to go to IF market, the domestic overseas market, it works in domestic market also, especially overseas market, then I think it's best to go for international standard and look for IF, ILAC kind of certification or testing so that it can be internationally accepted. So this will be very minor tips, or in nutshell, some tips that I think you should follow if you are getting into manufacturing in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was quite a presentation, and conformity assessments in a nutshell. Even after 20 years in consulting, almost 20 plus years, we are all learning. Every day we are learning, and we are still learning. Thank you so much for the detailed presentation, sir, because it's very important for the young businesses and startups or early stage businesses to understand that standards are a different framework, and your conformity assessment is a different framework, regulation is a different framework, but all are interconnected. In a regulated environment, regulated business, it is the regulator who also, they also define the quality management system framework or the testing requirements. So in a regulated environment, regulator will prescribe most of the specifications. Thank you so much for the detailed presentation, sir. Next, now, sir was talking about standards, and the standards have been around the corner for many years. It's not that ISO has been there for many decades. And these standards have been implemented by various businesses across various domains. So the next speaker of the day we have is from the certification body. We do have Mr. Shankar Mohan. Just give me 1 sec. Let me just introduce. Yeah. Just no. Let me just share Mr. Yes. So welcome, Mr. Shankar. Mr. Shankar Mohan, and he is the regional operations head of DQS India. He's been our kind of good friend and mentor for most of us in consulting space, and he was in his earlier organization, which was TUE SUD, and he was with TUE SUD, which is a certification body. He's been into this management system auditing space with about 16 years of auditing experience. And he's conducted about 3,600 audits covering 4 management system standards. He has handled the business unit of certification and business assurance for TUE SUD, South Asia. And then later he has moved on to TUE SUD, ASEAN region also. From Singapore he was operating. So he's involved in various global client assessments covering BMW, and then, Schaeffel Group, Tenneco, VFS, Renault, Nissan, GM, Hyundai Motors, Saint-Gobain, etc. So he's the technical qualifications. He's a qualified IATF 16949 auditor. This is a technical standard for automotive industry, and a qualified lead auditor for various standards like ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001. Conducted close to about 1,100 man days of IATF 16949 audits, covering various original equipment manufacturers, tier 1 and tier 2 supply chain. So Shankar, in fact, in his earlier organization, TUV, developed a lot of customer centricity, in the sense like, we are all consultants, are also an indirect customers, and they have created a lot of value for consultants by constantly educating us, and they have focused so much on the learning and development part of it, and we have all immensely benefited. And we have requested him today to join us for this understanding series for the startups. In spite of his tough audit schedules, he just kept aside some time for us. Thank you so much, Mr. Shankar. Over to you now.
Yeah, so thank you, Rama Madam, as well TIE team for the engagement of this day on the topic of creating customer value with ISO standard. First thing I would like to start with, DQS is an accredited certification body for 200 plus schemes, and happy to see Mr. Anil Zugari, whom I met in Singapore also during the accreditation body event. Such an eminent personalities are there in this forum, and I'm really happy to be associated with this forum. So coming to the subject on ISO contributions, especially for creating customer value, I would like to start with the 5-pillar concept Maybe next you can move on. So there are some introduction, of course, about DQS. DQS is basically we are from having shareholders from standards body, UL, which is more into product standards. You must be knowing about product standards from safety side is well known in Western market as well as in Asia market. And DIN, of course, DIN standards, they are basically from Europe, especially from German. And this two standards bodies are part of shareholders for DQS. So in a way, we are very well connected with the standard body when it comes to product safety side or product standard or even on the management system related standards. So that is one strength which DQS is always holding as part of the shareholders arrangement. And next, DQS is also in India over 35 years. So we started from 1985 here, and in 2020 we are approaching 35th year of operation. And 2008 we took over the UL management system certification related business, so completely taken over by DQS. So now globally, UL clients and DQS clients are part of DQS, and we have covered close to 200 different schemes and over 65,000 certificates for 200 scheme we issued in the market, and is all accredited scheme. And DQS by principle we work with accredited program. Next. So some milestone, of course, we work with about close to 2,500 experts and including the auditors, and we do an average 125,000 audit mandates for various scheme. We cover close to 130 countries and 85 offices we have in 60 countries, and we are also part of IQNet member. And recently, we were also assessed by NABCB team from QCI. Of course, they have done an assessment for 13485 from NABCB side. So that is also we are actively having presence in medical domain, both product side as well as on the certification side. Next. So maybe before we were talking about the ISO standard, I thought we will try to give a little more focus on 5 pillar, how this is connected with. Maybe some of you, some of the experts in this forum would have come across 5 pillars in a different perspective. But here the perspective is as an entrepreneur, if someone is leading a business, they need to really see the connection between these 5 pillars. I would always try to start with leader as a central pillar here, and who is very much responsible for developing a good team as a people, and who is also connected with developing good system. System in the sense they can use various standards. Now ISO 9001 or ISO 9000 family is one of the basic platform one can consider, because this platform can be applied for any business. And process, of course, you need to also work on the process in terms of what the customer is looking at. And just now we had a very detailed insight on legal framework, what is available by Mr. Anil. So we can also try to integrate how the process can be developed by considering the legal requirements as well as the standard requirements. All this framework can be put together for developing a good process. And it can be applied for a company which is making product, or it can be also applied for a company purely into service, customer service. So all these 5 pillars needs to be connected, because sometimes you may find it the best business result, what we are aiming at or what we are looking at as a long-term plan is possible only with how the connectivity between these 5 pillars, how how integrated approach they are working on all these 5 pillars. That's really very important. So as an entrepreneur, when you start a business and when you try to do overall business approach, you may have to see the connectivity between these 5 pillars, and the contribution of ISO or any management system or the scheme what we mentioned about 200 or plus scheme what is available in the market can all be part of one of the pillar here on system. And it can legal requirements and the customer requirements, everything can connect you through process. And the leader, of course, he need to have his own qualities with respect to developing a good people and the product what you have, which is meeting the demands of the market, or the service which is meeting the current demand. So these all 5 which needs to be focused as part of the business process. And because why we say on this, our experience out of this 20 plus years experience in auditing, most of the time try to we work on one of the pillar system on the standards, but we need to see an integrated approach from a people point of view, from a leader point of view, how the process is integrated, and how the product and service is connected with the organization, as a overall business process. So that is how we generally integrate. And I wish that attention always for young entrepreneurs to start with thinking on how do you develop over a period of time the system and the process, and how this is all connected with the business process. Next. Now, the basically quality management system starts with about 8 principles. Of course, what we could see in the year of 1985 and subsequently in 2000 and 2005, and the evaluation is now towards 2015 version of ISO 9000 series, what we are implementing. You see, there is always a focus for quality management system, which comes with about 8 principles. And customer focus is there always, and management as a team responsibility what was defined in 2005 is more addressing towards leadership now, and involvement of people now it is moving towards engagement of people. And process approach, of course, you have process approach in 2005 as well in 2015. And when it comes to system approach to management, they are more trying to move towards process approach. How process approach can really help for the business process of any organization which is into. And when it talks about continual improvement in the year 2005, now we are moving towards more of an improvement because there are uncertainties, and we need to really start thinking about improvement from the current level wherever they are. And factual approach of decision making, now we are more moving towards evidence based decision. Whatever it is you do, like internal audit or a second party audit or a third party audit, all these things are basically connected with evidence based decision making process, and how effectively the system is working, and how is the efficiency with respect to process. Then we try to take a decision for the complete business process. And we also try to see the relationship management, because no longer we will have only supply chain in the business process. We may have totally a different business model which is evolving for every business. Example to quote, like channel partners, which are very vital role they are playing in IT sectors, and which are slightly different from supplier supply chain arrangement what we have it in manufacturing sectors. So that this relationship management requirement can accommodate all the business model requirements and need. So that is what now the standard is also moving towards. Next. So the benefits, of course, we see from this ISO basic model is, of course, which is going to, it's a risk-based approach. So we see how the basic risk connected with business process are identified, and how the mitigation is a control arrangement is made for every organization. We see from a customer point of view, we see from a supply chain point of view. If it is a sectors like IT, then we see from channel partners point of view. So all the complete stakeholders interest and external interest and internal party interest are all well connected with this risk assessment approach and risk control and mitigation approach. So that we will be doing an assessment during our surveillance check or during our initial assessment for any organizations. We also see how is the morale and how is the motivation at employee level, and we also see how is the customer retention and interested party, basically how they are involving the getting input from the interested party, and how is the reputational related risk are addressed in the business process, and credibility, how they are trying to focus. And we also see the customer satisfactions, and nowadays the arrangement of satisfaction survey no longer they call it a survey, it's more of a perception. So one can internally also try to monitor and measure the perception on customer side. So these all will be the benefit an organization will be getting, be it any business, they are either manufacturing or service sectors can approach this common basic model. Next. 2015 is also addressing about how the plan, do, check, act process approach is very clearly demonstrated here. So these all sections and subsections of various standard, and we are not going through each section requirement here, but basically I wanted to address it all starts with a good planning where the in a complete advanced planning approach, when you take more time, and naturally the effectiveness and efficiency is guaranteed in a complete business process. So that way the planning is coming with a lot of requirements. So in planning, the ISO model has started with the context of the organizations, and they are also addressing about as a leadership, what is the commitment they need to have it, and in terms of planning, like how do they address risk, and doing a risk assessment and identifying the risk, and how are they going to mitigate the risk, and what are the actions they have a plan towards addressing the risk in all business process. So that is what they are well connected right from the beginning planning approach. And operations, of course, operation associated controls, and how the controls are giving guarantee for the consumers, and the customer commitment, how they are meeting in the business process is always focused as part of the operations. And check, when it comes to performance evaluations, you need to come with your own system. Here the role of legal and the role of customer requirements all plays a very important role here. And when it comes to monitoring a process, we try to monitor the process. If it is some cases can be regulatory driven, and we need to go by the regulatory requirements, and some cases it can be customer driven requirements, so we need to monitor the process based on customer requirements. So there are acts, of course. When it comes to act, we try to see more from how do we bring the performance consistency first, then we will pick up improvement. So this is the approach which they are looking at. As part of the act, they would also be focusing on if there are service commitment from the organization, and how do they address the service commitment, and if it is a warranty claims or issues like that, so how do they address that as part of the act improvement process. So that is how the system is connected. So in a way, the high-level structure of ISO 9001 is basically addressing all the requirements related to process, and how do they address related to the planning part, and how they address related to the operation side as well as monitoring the process. It's a continuous evaluation, and ISO 9001 is a basic platform requirement which can be applied for any organization. And nowadays, companies are starting with ISO 9001, and over a period of say 2 cycle or 3 cycle implementation, they are also trying to give focus on sector specific standards, which was mentioned as part of Mr. Anil's presentation, that IATF could be for automotive. Then organization can look at from aerospace, if they are doing a business, then they can look at AS 9000 series standard. And if someone is trying to focus on railway business like IRIS, so then they can focus on IRIS standard. So this approach, I see now companies are starting with ISO 9001, and they, over a period of time, say 1 cycle 3 year or 2 cycle after 6 years, they try to look at focus on product specific. And there are organizations we come across, ISO 9001 is still being implemented, be it even a 20-year or 30-year, they follow the same standard and they keep it as a basic platform. In addition, sector specific standards for each business sectors, they used to have it as add-on requirement. So this is how the business process is generally being looked at. And so this is what I wanted to share as a basic thought on how ISO 9001 can support for an organizations in terms of creating a value. And next, so basically we have we are engaging various assessment activities, as we discussed, close to 200 plus assessment scheme we are working on, and wish to really interact with the TIE team further for any specific engagement. And thank you all, and thank you TIE team as well as Rama madam.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shankar. Actually, just forgot to introduce the topic. That the topic, as he mentioned, was creating a customer value through ISO standards. A good HLS structure, what he had shown. Even now, we consider ISO 9001 as the mother of all standards. So, a good HLS structure, when implemented well in the true spirit, that adds a lot of value to your own customers. By and large, the structure covers all the aspects and all the requirements of your customers and your customer expectations. So, well implemented management system, it can be a 9001 standard or whichever is the standard, can really add a lot of value to your own customers. And basically, sometimes if you go back and see what your customers are asking from you, most often, sometimes they're all very basics. So even basics are not in our looped into our system, and that is where we get stuck actually. So moving on from Mr. Shankar's presentation, the next session we have is by Karthi Tyagarajan. So he will be addressing about the evolution of this ISO 9001 standard at startups level, at early stage businesses. A good management system, all you require is to start your journey on quality. The fundamental foundation for all startup and young businesses is introducing an ISO 9001 standard framework to your business. Even this 9001 standard had gone through lots of revisions and lots of changes. And in that evolution of the transition process, we had also seen that, the customer value, the customer focus kept on upgrading. There were a lot of elevations and upgradations to this customer centricity focus itself. Maybe we will have this session by Karthi. Karthi will be running us through the same. Just give me 1 second. Let me just introduce Can you see the screen? Is it audible, visible? Yeah.
No.
Yes, one second. Yeah. So Karthi is also a TiE member, and he is the founder of Nucleus Consultants, and he's also a principal consultant based out of Chennai, but he's a pan-India consultant. So he is, this is his profile, and he has been into management systems consulting, like most of us, close to about 2 decades, more than 15, 16 years. He has been in this domain. And so he focuses on sectors like aerospace and defense from his organization, railways, automotive industry, medical devices, and manufacturing industries, and on information security management systems. And then if you look at his professional qualifications, there's a long list of his certifications as professionally qualifying himself to various standards. So the practicing areas is again into ISO 9001, AS 9001, 9110, and then aerospace, and then NatCap, and ISO 14001, 45001. And then the automotive standard, telecom TL 9000, and then railway quality management system, medical devices, CE marking, that's for the product certifications, and lab accreditation for ISO 17025 for NAPL, and ISO 27001 for management system information security. And it's a long list. So maybe let us now listen to Karthi. Maybe he will explain to us as to how the 9001 standard has gone through an evolution in bringing more customer focus and customer centricity to the businesses. Over to you, Karthi. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the brief introduction, ma'am. My screen is visible. I'm audible.
Yeah, clear. Yes, please.
Yeah. So, creating customer value. So, how this ISO 9001 standard and its evolution helps the achieve customer value in businesses. That's what I'm going to cover. So let's start with some questions from the participants. How many of you are certified for ISO 9001? Or is there any plan in your company to go for this ISO 9000 certification? Maybe you can respond through chat window. You have any plan to go for this ISO certificate if you're already certified? Yes, thanks for the response. Okay. So many organizations you might have seen, they are certified for ISO 9001 or with various management systems. First of all, why an organization is going for this certification? There are various reasons. Maybe it's strategic decision. Since it's a voluntary standard, you wanted to adopt in your organization. Sometimes it's a customer contractual requirement. Even along with RFQ, some tender, if you want to participate, there will be some qualification criteria like ISO 9001. And sometimes it's a regulatory requirement. There are different reasons behind that why organization is going for ISO 9001 quality management system. You might have came across different type of organizations are certified for ISO 9001. It's a very generic standard. Manufacturing sector, IT, service industries, educational, healthcare industries, lot of government organization. We could see bus stands, railway station, airports, even temples, police station. Many players are entering into this ISO 9001. Typically, it's a quality management system. As Mr. Shankar sir clearly briefed about this plan, do, check, act, and continually improve the entire processes. So that's what the basic quality management system talks about. So let's answer these two questions. Who defines a quality in your organization? And who delivers quality in your organization? Whenever we go for implementing, consulting, training this management system, we would always like to ask these two questions. So some organizations have clear processes, say, yes, we have a team, they will talk to customers and try to get their requirements, and they will define the quality requirements. Or we have a design team, R&D team, who understand the customer needs and expectation, or we hear the voice of the customer, and we convert those customer requirement into product requirement or service requirement. Then who delivers quality? Yes, we have a team of people who done operations technically, who produce the product or who provide the service, who take care of core processes. So they delivers the quality. I'll maybe a bit fine tune this question to you. Who dictate quality? Sometimes it's regulators, sometimes it's customers, sometimes the own innovator. Then obviously who is going to comply it? It's not just the one team. In many organizations, we have a team, right? A quality control team, quality assurance team. The word quality is not always restricted with the product quality or service quality. It goes beyond that. There are multiple factors in it: system quality, process quality. There are a lot more requirements. We initially, this evolution started like this. We started with inspection testing of products and services. Later we moved to quality control concepts, then quality assurance system, then quality planning, quality improvement. There are a lot more things we can keep on doing in quality. So typically what this quality planning is, we have our policies, objectives, procedures. Typically quality assurance is more on a proactive. It's going to prevent and help the process to improve. Quality control is more on reactive, will detect the faults, and it ensures the conformity of product or services. And we need to measure our system. So all put together, we call it as processes. All our processes needs to be managed with these type of tools and techniques. So typically ISO 9001 talks about all these things. Now, if you go and look back the same question, who dictate the quality and who comply the quality? So everyone plays a very important role. We can't keep or we can't assign this work to a particular process owners. So everyone in the organization is very much have their responsibility on dictating and delivering this quality. So this is the evolution of ISO 9001. We are aware before this ISO 9001, there are a lot of military standards, the country-specific standards. There was one British standard 5750. The first international standard on quality management system was released in 1987. ISO international standard was released. That time they have come up with the three standard, 9001, 9002, and 9003. They classify the standards like if you are design, producing and delivering a product or services, then you need to go for ISO 9001. If you're a non-design organization, just do a build to print or a contract manufacturer, you just provide a service. So for you, it's 9002. Some organization who does inspection and testing, for them it is 9003. So this ISO 9001 in 87, it's more related to a simple quality assurance model. One thing we all well aware about, that standard is not standard, because they have to revise the standard based on the needs and expectation, regulations. There are plenty of things are getting changed. So they need to go and revise the standards. So obviously the next revision was happened in 94. In 94, they have again introduced a concept more on preventive action. So rather than reactive, we should focus more on proactive. So that is what the concept introduced. Then in the year of 2000, big change I could say, they introduced the concept called as process approach: plan, do, check, act. So far the system is ISO 9000 says, say what you do what you say. It is not just meeting the requirement, you have to meet them consistently. Now the concept of continuous improvement was introduced in the year of 2000 and 2008. It is considered as a continual improvement. And it's not a one-time activity to improve. You have to consistently, you have to recur to enhance your performance. So that's what all about the change. But what happened in 2015, I could say a big change. The conceptual things have changed. Now the new standard ISO 9001 2015 talks about more on how an organization is going to achieve their desired output. What exactly we are going to achieve? What is our intended outcome of a quality management system? Now, if you look at the word customer focus, so how this is being reflected in this particular standard journey, the word customer value, initially it was thought we just meet the product quality, deliver what we promised. There are some product requirement, there are some standard requirement for that particular product. If we comply that, yes, our customers are satisfied. Then later it moves towards understand customer needs and expectation, and try to meet that. That's what customer satisfaction or customer perception, I could say. Now the word customer value, it is not just meeting the product requirement or service requirement. It goes beyond that. So what exactly beyond that? So now the standard focus towards sustained success. So this word sustained success is very critical thing. When they revised the standard in 2015, the fundamental or the entire quality management system should give us some strong foundation for our sustainable growth. That was the whole thought process behind this new version. Typically, if you walk through the standard on various requirement, so each clauses we could see the value to customers or the sustained success. We can see a lot of traces in the standard. Context of the organization. It is not just meeting the customer requirement. We need to go beyond them. Not just meeting the requirement. Try to identify the needs and expectation of our interested parties. Then the leadership, they play a major role. The commitment, the accountability from the top management is one of the key success factor for the entire effectiveness of quality management system. When you establish policy for your organization, the value to customers that really plays a vital role there. And of course, there is one new concept, risk-based thinking, that has been introduced in 2015 version of ISO 9001, and that should reflect based on your risk-based thinking, we have to plan entire quality management system. Typically, we do a preventive action after detecting a non-conformity. Instead of that, we have to do it in advance. That's the whole purpose of preventive action. So try to apply this risk-based thinking when you plan your quality management system. Then you running your quality management system, we need a lot of support, right, to run our businesses. So what are the resources you need to meet your customer needs and expectation, and to meet the product requirement, to meet the operational requirement? So that we have to determine and provide. And the entire operation talks about how you are going to realize your product or services to meet your customer requirements. And finally, we need to check and act. So that's what go and assess customer perception, and we are deal with the customer complaints, how we are improving our quality management system. So this is how we could see the role of the standard is focusing more towards sustained success and achieving customer value. So the word, as Mr. Shankar said, the customer satisfaction, the gap between what is your customer expectation and what is the customer perception. So that's what all about customer satisfaction. So typically the customer value can be determined or through a quality management system, through a effective quality management system, you can able to understand what exactly customers view. So typically who dictates quality to your company, and how we are going to deliver it, and who is going to comply it, and how we are going to measure it. So this is what all about some of the traces or essence we could see in entire ISO 9001. So the interested parties, it is not just always customers. If you look at the big picture, the context of the entire quality management system standard, so it talks about our partners and suppliers, a society as an organization, what is our contribution towards the society with respect to corporate social responsibility and the environmental related things, and typically how you deal with our employees and shareholders, typically investors. So what is their role, and what is their needs and expectation on our quality management system, and of course the customers. There are some other interested parties like regulators, bankers, insurers. So now the evolution of ISO 9001 moved from inspection and testing, then to quality control, then quality assurance, then quality management. Now it's moving towards a business management system. So if you particularly ask one question, how the customer focus is being addressed in the standard, it made it very clear in simple way. You determine and understand the customer needs and expectation, then consistently meet them. Not just customer requirement, also consider regulatory requirements. When you do this, obviously there are plenty of risks and opportunities. Determine them, apply a risk-based thinking. Then finally, you're going to measure, have we met those requirements? So you can ask customer perceptions. And there is one particular requirement in ISO 9001, which was there in every version of ISO 9001, customer satisfaction. There are multiple ways how you're going to determine it. You can conduct surveys, you can check your feedbacks and complaints, what you got. You can also check about the post-market study or post-market performance of your product, the claims and how much market share we have. So there are multiple factors. We need to adopt these things in our quality management system. So typically, I would like to everything put in one particular slide. When you plan your quality management system, consider your context. What is your strategy? What is your vision? Then develop your policies and objectives. Then apply risk-based thinking. This is nothing but how you play a chess game. Before making a move, you think risks and opportunities, right? So try to apply that when you establish a policy, when you establish a procedure. So try to apply a risk-based thinking there before deploying anything. Then determine the resource needed for your processes, your operations, to meet the customer requirement, to meet the regulatory requirements. The beauty of ISO 9001 or even any management system, it does not say how to do, it only say what to do. So based on the culture, either you are a startup or you are a big PSU or a small SMEs, doesn't matter. You have to determine your resource. Then typically do what you plan. The most important, the success factor in any management system is we need to measure the effectiveness and efficiency of our processes. Then finally, take action, corrective actions. If there is any non-conformities, if there is any deviation, failures, so try to do a root cause analysis, take corrective action, relook our risks, relook our risk-based thinking, then we need to continually improve. So this is what the big picture now ISO 9000 evolution now reaches. Still, next revision, I could say ISO 9000 is going to be revised again. Maybe we could see some more changes in coming years. So to meet or to achieve, to create customer value, ISO 9000 is not a solution, but it has its own little contribution. So how we seriously took this management system and use this as a tool to achieve customer satisfaction or to create customer value, it's all with our hand. So this is what from my end I would like to share.
Thank you. Thank you, Karthik. So thank you for that detailed presentation on customer focus and building customer value into your business. Now we had a session on standards, then we had a session on the certifications, and then Kathy was explaining about the customer focus. There was one query which was raised, by one of the participants is about somehow the journey of all this quality initiatives have moved from the intent-based to the content-based environment, a very true and valid observation. And what has happened at the marketplace? Somehow the ecosystem, the confidence on this certifications and the standards and all these things at the marketplace, at least in the last 1 decade, the confidence is a little low in the marketplace, and there is a reason for it. There is a definite reason for that low confidence at the marketplace, and all these previous sessions have explained the seriousness of implementing the management systems and the framework, what it calls for, and how a well-implemented system can satisfy your customer. But in spite of having businesses flashing those ISO certificates and various standards, somehow still your customers are not happy. Why your customers are not happy, and what is the effectiveness of the certificates that are being flashed and shown in the marketplace? So we have our next speaker who's going to actually touch upon the certifications and the risk associated in choosing the certification. So welcome, Annie. So we do have Annie Jones from Bangalore, and just give me 1 minute. I will just introduce her. So her topic is recognizing the risk of unauthentic certifications. Now, what is it and what are those? Maybe is what she's going to explain to us. Let me just introduce Annie quickly. So she is Annie Alex Jones, and she is a lead assessor with NABCB. So she has about 25 plus years of experience in quality in defense and engineering industries. And she is also a lead assessor for the past 5 years associated with NABCB, which is a national accreditation body. And she is RAP QSCA certified and aerospace auditor for AS 9000 standard. She's conducted more than 50 days of global audits. She is a lead auditor with 300 plus audit days of experience in auditing various management systems like quality management systems, environmental management systems, occupational health and safety standards, AS 9000 standards. So she was a technical head of Bureau Veritas, a certification body, for many years. And she also had a long stint with SGS India, she was a manager for the training business and a lead auditor for various standards. And she's passed various professionally qualified certification programs, which are all IRCA approved for various management system standards. So let us listen to her, and then what's been happening at the marketplace for the last 10-15 years is what she's going to explain to you. Over to you, Annie. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Ms. Rama. I, at the onset, let me thank Consultants Consortium of Chennai and TiE Chennai for giving me this opportunity to talk on this topic, risk of unauthentic certification. We have heard from very well-spoken speakers, Mr. Anil Jowhary, and from Mr. Shankar Mohan, Mr. Karthi Tyagarajan, because you have already talked in detail about the requirement of certification, the importance of ISO 9001, and the environment of regulation. The environment of regulation that is both in our country or globally that is present was very well detailed out by Mr. Jowhary. So as I saw some of you remarking that some of you are seeking ISO certification, or some of you are already ISO certified, your business, your process or services, are now looking at this topic of mine is how to ensure that your certification or what you're going to seek out for is going to add value, is credible. How would you conduct due diligence to ensure that if it is under regulated sector, it would meet that requirement, or if it is under voluntary certification, how would we ensure that it finds an international equivalence? My slide, please. So we have heard about ISO 9001, yes? Under the voluntary certification, we have seen that the ISO is here for both product and service certification to add customer delight or adding value to the customer, to the product, with quality in focus. Well, to demonstrate the conformance to a requirement, a certificate is issued under a voluntary certification scheme. You have seen that under regulated sector like food would have either an inspection report or a test report. In a voluntary certification would be followed by a particular certificate. We have seen lots of kinds of certificate in the market. Slide, please. Under the voluntary certification, for various reasons, some of you are going for ISO certification, maybe because your customer demands it, maybe under a contractual agreement, a commitment, or maybe your own focus to beat the competition. Yes, to show that you have a quality product in the market to draw attention from the customers. Yeah. Some of these certifications that we have seen, as Mr. Jowhary very well detailed out, that is instituted by the government if it's under the regulatory scheme, or it could be from the industry, or could be sought out by a sector. Some of them spelled out under the voluntary was 9001 and the medical 13485. We've also seen there are certificates of CE marking for those products that have to be sold in a European sector or the European economic area. Yes, but the certificates that are issued, the bodies you select, those who are already certified or seeking selection, how would you know that your certificate would be recognized? Slide, please. A few sample of certificates we would like you to just have a look at. These certificates are picked exactly from the market. These are real live certificates that while in NABCB QCI, these certificates came to their notice. Just have a look, we will discuss it. You see the certificate has a very clear standard for conformance, ISO 9001. The client that has been certified, SAR of GATEX, for the product scope of activity of manufacturing or exporting hospital garment and garment for ladies and kids. Lot of details. There are logos. There's a hologram also to ensure that the certificate is not duplicated. There are some logos by an accreditation body, GACP. Yes. Slide, please. Another certificate with a CE marking, a marking that indicates that the product would qualify in the European Economic Area, which is CE. This product is under the medical devices. The scope may not be very clear here, but it is a very recent certificate of March 2020. Yeah. So this certificate is issued for medical devices. Okay, for the European sector. All right, next slide, please. Now, we have seen two certificates. If you looked at this first certificate closely, on the top of the first certificate, you had MAC certification. The certification body's name was MAC certification. Yeah. The second one was IMC certification. So what are these bodies? Where are they? Are they under any kind of oversight? How would you know? I looked up the Google for MAC certification and was trying to trace the address. It doesn't even exist. It's required by the standard that their information should be publicly available. Also, the accreditation of the certification body, GACB, ICAB, who are they? I mean, where are they referred or mentioned, or who are they being regulated by? So how know that the CB that you pick up or the certificates that are being issued to you for your product for to get recognition for your product and services, to get established value for your customer? How will you ensure they are authentic? Yeah, only if they are under third party independent certification recognized by IF. We will come there. The next slide, please. Yeah. So why an authentic certificate? How would you do due diligence? Well, if it was a government certification body, we know that BIS has a certification wing. We can have trust on them because yes, they also are accredited. They have methodology of ensuring that auditors are competent. Surveillances oversights are conducted as required by ISO 17 or 21. But if it's a private body, how would you place trust on them? Would they be able to provide services as required by the conformance standard for a certification body against ISO 17 or 21? Well, if it's a brand name too, how would you know that the next 3 years period of your valid certification, they're going to provide your service? So for those who are new, let us look at how you can pick up identify a certification body and how you can conduct a due diligence for yourself. Well, slide please. Mr. Jury in the very first presentation explained adequately about the International System of Equivalence. The apex body IAF has under MLA's oversights conduct oversight for the regional bodies under Asia Pacific, European cooperation, or whether it is under American country or African AFRAC. So under the IAF, the regional bodies are being regulated under oversight and under the requirement of 1701. We have seen the slide. The next slide, please. And these regional bodies, under these regional bodies, the accreditation bodies are established to conduct oversight on the certification body. All these under the requirement of certain standards that are listed down. For certification body, they have to establish a standard of 1721 with a clear requirement of identifying and establishing competent auditors and competent certification process, the output of which is a valid certificate. Slide, please. The contents of a certificate we have seen. First, yes, the logo of a certification body is available along with the name of the business that is being certified. Next, a very clear scope of certification, which describes its product process, the core process, under which, example, manufacturing of textiles we have seen, or production of PPE equipments or medical device, the accurate scope under which the certification process, the management system has been established. Third key element is the standard against which the certificate is being issued. The management system has been established and a certification process and audits are conducted. It could be 9001, as Mr. Karthi Tyagarajan very well clearly indicated. It could be under medical devices. Yeah, we saw the second certificate of IMC with a clear identification of the date of issue of certificate and the expiry. Because during these, generally the period of a certificate validity is 3 years. During this period, annually, a business is supposed to conduct their surveillance and review by the certification body. Slide, please. Followed by a very unique identification number or identification of every certificate, which can be traced to the CB, to the activity, and when it was issued. So name and address of the CB, the logo of the CB, followed by the accreditation symbol of the accreditation board which has issued this accredited certificate. Yes. So this is under a equivalence which can be traced back to IAF. And ninth, which is an optional, the IAF mark is optional because if the CB is accredited by an accreditation board which is under IAF, you can link it with them by adding the CB alone, but the IAF mark is optional, which would clearly indicate that they are under a clear internationally monitored and recognized system of certification. Yes. All right, let us see some good samples of 2 certificates. Slide, please. I'm wondering if this is clear for you. It may be small on a phone. So this is a certificate issued by TUV Sud. One of our speakers said they have previously worked with them. You see, the logo is clear. If you go to Google and type TUV Sud, you would see the Sud TUVs where logo is in conjunction with NABCB logo. Yeah, their certification body is NABCB, who is under IAF. Yeah. So the equivalence is clear along with the name of the client is certified. It was TVS Logistics. Yes. The location, the address of the client, the standard ISO 9001, the scope here for the activity that the client has picked up certification is installation, commissioning, maintenance of telecom equipment. The dates, validity of certificates are clear. The address of the CB is clear. And if you just Google, you will have enough and adequate information that they are under a recognizable oversight here. Slide, please. Another good example of a certificate, valid certificate, is Quality Austria, Central Asia. Here again, you will see the logo of the CB on the left-hand side, Q, and on the right bottom, it is accredited by NABCB and a clear IAF logo. Here again, the certificate has details of the client along with the scope of certification, the address, etc. Yes, the standard, so and so. Yes. All right. So we expect a good responsible business house to conduct due diligence to identify and pick up a certification body, a certificate that will be issued, which will be recognized globally. Slide, please. Yes. So who should you trust? Well, if the manufacturer service provider is covered under the regulations we have seen, if it is under regulatory authority, the certificate issued with the test certificate would be under they have to, yeah, as a legal requirement, otherwise the product service become unacceptable. If it is under pharma, it would be under CDSCO. Well, if it is requires a mandatory certain marking by BIS, if it's a product certificates, it will have an ISI mark. But if it is under voluntary scheme, yes, please do ensure that the certification body you pick up is accredited by under recognition by IAF. You can go to the IAF website, which will very clearly list down the accreditation boards, or pick up the NABCB. If it is an Indian arm, the NABCB website, it clearly identifies its accredited certification bodies for the various standards, whether it is QMS, environment management system, health and safety, ISO 45000. You will also know the history of some CBs if they have had been suspended for any particular reason or etc. So, slide please. Yeah. Well, if the manufacturer claims that they have certification like GMP, it should be a CB accredited by NABCB carrying the clear logo, NABCB logo under IF system. So accreditation means certification against a recognized standard that the process establishes robust and CB has competence in that standard and a competent auditing team. IF has creating a database of certificates for management systems so that all the certificates that have been issued under accredited system would be available soon on their website. Well, if pre-dispatch inspection of goods products or inspection on receipt is needed, you may use NABCB accredited inspection bodies, IBs, and the inspection report would carry the NABCB logo. For example, there are 4 IBs for textile sectors right now. In case of any doubt, you may you may get in touch with NABCB Secretariat or can refer to NABCB at nabcb@qcin.org. Best place to go today for accredited certification bodies because you will find a very strong oversight process established for the confidence that is required for our society at large to service a society to ensure that your interested parties are serviced the way they need to be. So please only go for reliable, genuine certification bodies that would give you confidence, your peace of mind. It would have international recognition, also service our society. If you have any questions, I will be willing to take it at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Last 3-4 months, the kind of queries that were coming to our association and to us consultants seeking clarifications every day on those certificates stamped on those PPE product companies. Any number of PPE certificates were floating in the market, whether this USFDA is correct, CE marking is correct. On average, we used to get about 6 to 8 calls a day. And especially in the healthcare forum, the medical space, doctors forums, they were asking every day, we suspect the certificates, are these genuine? And then we do not have these registries. Thankfully, now the registries are up in all the global markets. The registries are up and anybody can actually go and verify the genuineness of the certificate now, which was not available earlier. So that is why, and then they were asking medical professionals and doctors, why don't you do more sessions for industry? Why don't you educate us? How do we know? How do we know? How do we check whether it is genuine? So it's a very good topic and a session. Thank you so much for the insights. So now we can, next session, we can just move on to the next session. Just a second, please. We do have our next speaker. We have Mr. Shanmugavel Shankaran, who's CEO of Fixnix USA. And he will be doing a case study of a business which has implemented this ISO standards and built a lot of customer focus through the standards. And he's a member of TiE Chennai. Just give me 1 minute. I will just share his presentation. Yes. So welcome, Mr. Shanmugavel. And so Mr. Shankaran is offering, he's the CEO of a global company, a global platform offering governance, risk and compliance solutions. That's GRC. And so he is founder and chief mixer of this FixNix Inc. From USA. And he's earned a lot of global experience, global IT experience from various global brands. And then he's decided to set up his own venture into this GRC space. GRC space is a very interesting space, and it's an emerging space. Now we live in an era of data security and risk management issues, and this is a beautiful space to be in. And so he was there in all multiple roles, and then he worked in Microsoft, IBM, and all this as part of the leadership teams. He's a Bachelor of Engineering learner. And then the last paragraph was so interesting. The education in the schools which only taught about building things and not about breaking stuff. And all those degrees which could not, which could get ourselves to pursue masters and doing internship in the premier companies. So whatever that did not happen, now he started mixing all that now. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mr. Shanmugavel. And over to you now, please.
Thank you, Rama. Are you able to hear me, Rama?
Yeah, clear. Yes, please.
Awesome. Thanks for the kind audience, and I think it was a great learning from NABCP and many others from the industry. I think we are at maybe at a different supply chain cycle of that whole this process industry. So we are a product platform. So we automate cybersecurity processes, other processes as a governance, risk and compliance platform. So after COVID-19 happened, I think we launched our virtual security officer platform. So we were trying to help all the organizations how we can kind of streamline their existing business. So we used our virtual security officer platform, which has multiple components from the GRC, like internal audit, risk management, business continuity, disaster recovery, asset management. So all of these are process management products out of the platform, which we have helped to automate the systems. Particularly, we kind of helped one of the clients on ISO 27001, 27701, which is on security and privacy. I'm going to share. So how the real startups, see, they are not a real large enterprise. So I'm going to tell from, use this as a time as a case study, how it would be really beneficial for anybody can look at. So how they can automate even despite being a startup, right? Automate some of these processes and can get benefited. So who is FixNix? So we are a kind of an 8-year-old company. We have 230 customers, 10,000 plus users. We have 12 products in this space. We recently got mentioned by Gartner. So we have also some deep technology capabilities like predictive analytics, regulatory risk data lake, blockchain whistleblower. So beyond the usual other processes like compliance, audit, risk, assert, incident policy, business resiliency, disaster recovery, privacy board. So all of this processes and products may be familiar for you in case if you are looking at automating some of the things like ISO 27001 kind of standards. So you would have certainly come across. So and we have an alliance, virtual chief information security officer alliance. After COVID-19, we brought almost 20 plus leaders from the industry. So who have multiple industry exposure, who have been helping many organizations on leading their standard implementation and certification. So we are trying to use this alliance to help many of our customers because we, as I think Rama and many others mentioned, so we are seeing a huge volley of interest from everybody to kind of get themselves certified or use this lean period to improve on their process, right? So I think this is what we did for the customer. So we focused on data security and privacy standard and help them on the implementation and certification. So we provide a bunch of things beyond our governance, risk and compliance. We provide a bunch of things, including emerging technology, security architecture and solution, identity and access management, threat intelligence. So as part of the virtual CISO, we are alliance, we are doing multiple bunch of things. So anything under cyber security and privacy is what our forte in vCISO Alliance. So I think we are trying to bring both the technology platform and a senior top thought leader of the cyber security and privacy. That's our strength in this FixNix plus offering. So I think 3 steps we took to help the client stay happy and with respect to security and privacy is, first we defined the plan. So we defined the InfoSec plan. So privacy are related, most of the controls are related to information security. So we kind of defined the clear plan, and then first defined the policies, whatever they had, some few pre-built policies. We defined additional policies and then mapped those controls with the industry best practices. Not only ISO 27001, there were even they had mandates like a SOC 2 and a few other cyber security standards. So we helped them on that. And then finally, when it came to implementation, there were kind of many of the controls, whatever new policies we have written, certainly it was not implemented. So we kind of used the same usual process what we do for implementing any management system standard, right? Be it quality or be it environment. So when it comes to implementation, we kind of implement one control after another, do the awareness, do the kind of metric definition, and a lot of those things, right? All those things we kind of did. And we, interestingly, the primary value proposition what we bring to the table for the brought to the table for the that particular client and even the rest of the industries, we bring a platform, technology platform. So it's not going to be Excel anymore. So I think it's going to be very lightweight. It's not going to be costing some kind of hundreds of $1,000. They even invest maybe even $1,000 types. They can very well get this platform. That's the kind of real powerfulness what we have got. So finally, we demonstrated the compliance and then helped them. They had some customer auditor who kind of came and visited and then kind of looked at all that response, and then finally through which they qualified. So usually this is the cycle what we take. So first, in regulatory engine, we kind of plug the whichever standard or regulation they are supposed to comply. We kind of prepare the controls checklist. We kind of have some 600 plus controls checklist from the most of the standards, global standards and regulations. So we kind of controls checklist, and then the organization just need to demonstrate they have a copy of the standard. So once after that, we enable that particular controls checklist, and then subsequently they can do a self-assessment inside compliance. They can do an exhaustive audit inside audit, and then in risk management, we can maintain a risk register and policy, assert, incident. All of these are very much interconnected with the audit and the compliance. So where in this case, we have helped the organization define on ISO 27001, what are the set of policies that we kind of define 10 policies which are relevant, and then brought all their, we couldn't get the hardware assets, software assets, information assets, people assets, but we could get the hardware assets. So we built the asset registry through our asset product. So we pretty much used our product, which came very handy to kind of implement. We couldn't get to that incident, business resiliency, disaster recovery stage, because they are at a very kind of initial stage of maturing their cyber security system. So this is how we kind of scaled their initial cyber security thing. So in ISO 27001 2013, so there are kind of almost we kind of have got 14 different domains, and we have 114 controls. So pretty much all of this have a very focused aspect towards cyber security, from cyber supplier relationships to business continuity to cryptography to physical security, operational security, communication security, and then how well we are defining the organization of information security, who's going to be the primary person, and who's going to be the kind of the other person who will be auditing the controls. So the kind of whether we have an organizational chart, and then with when it comes to human resource security, whether we are onboarding employees with the right kind of pre-checks, and whether we are doing awareness when they are leaving, or we removing the controls, the access for them. So all of these things comes in place, and this is how we kind of help them mature bunch of controls for 27001 and demonstrate. And privacy, as I said, 27701 is an extension of 27001, which is on the privacy. So we kind of beyond that, they also want to get themselves for GDPR and a few other data protection acts, because they are present in both North America and Europe. So the another interesting aspect what we found is startups. They may be very small in nature, but they may be serving across globe. Okay, they may be having people, clients out of Europe, clients out of North America. They will be just serving right all of them just sitting in Chennai. So that's the very interesting aspect. So kind of this privacy aspect is still evolving for them, but still we kind of could plug. So initially now we started with this information security management system by helping them implement ISO 27001 and get themselves certified. And privacy information management, we have helped them kind of implement all the necessary controls. So eventually there are other some of the other standards in the 27,000 family itself towards cloud security, personal data protection, cyberspace security. We are looking at helping them eventually. So I think the approach what we took is first we determined, discovered and kind of defined the necessary components and assessed. So we used our fresh GRC compliance. So our GRC platform's name is fresh GRC. And then subsequently we used our policy system to recommend and develop many of the policy systems. And finally kind of we used our audit product to implement many of the controls and demonstrate. So kind of during this process, there was an assessment, there was recommendations. Finally, we delivered the overall management strategy and framework. So the benefits arrived for the customer was they kind of certainly had a phenomenal business growth and customer assurance. So where they could assure some of their large enterprise customers that they have a mature information security system now. And also there was a internal information security awareness and culture. And with respect to COVID-19, everybody never had any clue how they need to operate in a more secure fashion. We kind of brought a lot of new tools, systems like a VPN, data loss prevention, etc. as part of the implementation, which got them a lot of insights that, okay, how they can still do business within a secured fashion. So there is certainly a process improvement. There is a supplier management, awareness and cultural change. And then there's now finally they have a leadership commitment for security because they are able to sit and operate with a very peaceful mind on cyber security, even though everybody is working out of home, by implementing right products. So they are able to do it. So this is not costing huge with kind of people. They could implement less than $1,500 per month kind of investment. We are the world's first software as a service governance, risk and compliance platform. So we were the first one to bring this kind of transparency. People can plug in products and then just have clear clarity about how they are going to just invest and start their implementation. So this is in a nutshell in our journey, how we have helped one of the customer. Would be very happy to kind of help anybody and everybody who have any needs on ISO, any ISO standards with respect to cyber security, privacy. Would be very happy to dabble and then help you guys in material of a commercial engagement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shanmugubel. Very interesting presentation, at least for a startup which is almost a decade old, to make many things as a culture. And then, to implement all these things, it really needs aligning people, processes, and technology, which is the need today. It requires a good management system framework in any organization and in any business. Thank you so much for the rich insights, but the presentation made by you and then, the journey that you had shared, made me move on to the next session and then, to pose the same question to the next session, which is actually a very interesting panel discussion. So let me just move on to the next session. The next session is actually a panel discussion, very interesting panel discussion, where the topic is regulations are a must. That's what Mr. Javri was mentioning. Any business in a regulated environment, regulated business segment, regulations are a must. But whether the standards and certifications help startups and early stage businesses. This was the panel discussion topic today, which will be anchored and moderated by Mr. Ramkumar Shivaraman. I will just introduce Mr. Ramkumar. Of course, the panelists we have for the session, we have Mr. Shankar Mohan from BQS India. We have Annie, and then we have Karthi Tyagarajan, and then we have Mr. Shanmugubel Shankaran also, because we request all the panelists to be here. Let me just quickly introduce Mr. Ramkumar Shivaraman. Just give me 1 second, please. Just 1 second. Yes. Yeah. So we have Mr. Ramkumar Shivaraman. Mr. Ramkumar is the founder director of Pragya Consultancy and been a management system consultant himself for many years. And he is also the vice president of Consultants Consortium of Chennai, which is our association for management system consultants. And so Mr. Ramkumar has about 22 years of diversified experience in guiding industry with various management systems on quality, food safety, health and safety, and then environmental management systems. So he worked as a quality, health and safety environmental manager, and then he's been a consultant for many years, a trainer and auditor. So he has been guiding the industry to implement various ISO standards like IATF 16949, ISO 9001, 14001, 27001, 22000, and 45001. So he's a certified assessor for CII's exam bank model for awarding business excellence to the businesses, and he's been conducting a lot of trainings. So welcome, Mr. Ramkumar, and very interesting panel discussion. We request all the participants to stay and then listen to a very interesting discussion. Thank you so much.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Is my voice audible?
Yes, clear.
Yeah, thank you. So
yeah, it is audible, sir.
Yeah, thank you, madam. So I welcome the panelists who are just now who have completed their presentations on various topics and have highlighted a lot of insight into the regulatory part and also the certification part. And really, I'm happy to lead this panel discussion. And today's topic, as Rama ma'am said, the regulations are a must, whether standards and certifications help the startups and the early stage businesses. Is it really helping the business? Is it a boon or a bane? That is what the thing which we are going to discuss in detail. And I welcome the panelists to share their views on how these regulations are really going to help the startup companies and also the businesses to grow further and grow to a level of a well-established corporate company. So now I call upon the panelists to share their views, whether the regulations, is it a boon or a bane?
I can take that.
Yeah.
Sure. I think I always feel, I think if the leadership has a commitment, then I think there is no question of they kind of taking this as a bane. They always take this as a boon because they see the results of the process improvement. So always be it any process, it can be CM, not only ISO, be it even CMM process or even any other process systems. So I think whenever we go for it, I think it certainly elevates the organization's overall way they do business. So I think if the leadership has a commitment, I think the rest of the things fall in place. I always found wherever there is a top-down approach, I think it worked really well. So whenever there is a kind of a bottom-up where there are some parts of the grassroots employee teams believe that they need to get into the standard, I think at times there is some political issues. I have seen that. Sir.
Well said, sir. Well said. In fact, it is nothing but the leadership commitment towards all these things, and that's why even in ISO standards, if you see, they have removed the role of MR. Before that, there was a management representative role in ISO 9001 requirement, which has been explicitly now it has been expressed that the top management commitment should be there in each and every activity of quality management system, or rather any management system for that matter. And particularly the role of startups, particularly in regulatory part, in complying with the regulatory requirements. Does the panelists think that is it a tough treading path where any startup will be able to take it, will be feeling that yeah, it's a very difficult thing to comply with the regulatory processes and undergo this? Are they seeing it as a what I'm trying to emphasize is, are they seeing it as a smooth way of doing things, or do they require some support, or is there support is available? And what is the exact feeling that the regulatory part compliance, with respect to the compliance, what is it that the undercurrent is there?
Yeah, maybe from uh, as we did come across many assessment for various industries in this context of startup companies. Always we need to really look at on two factor. One is how is the entry criteria for them to getting into a business cycle. So probably they may have a good product and they may have a good service ideas. It could be an innovative approach, but to take it to market, they need to have they need to build the confidence to the market. How this is possible is you need to have a recognition. So that is one way entry criteria is being looked at. Other one is good practices. ISO is nothing but pool of all the generation together, whatever we could come across as difficulties, limitations, constraints have been pooled as a good practice. Of course, the origin, if you see, it is all from military standards, and every consortium or group of recognized bodies who are all involved as part of developing the standards. So the evaluation takes a long time, right from 80s. We are trying to see how we can go about organized practice. This may not be a requirement for a developed environment when it comes to making a startup business, but when it comes to the developing environment, like whom we are in South Asia, mostly developing environment. So we have a lot of other challenges. To overcome the challenges, these good practices, pool of good practices from the standard will not be a limitation for them to implement. In fact, this will help them to come with a matured process and a good practices they can benchmark, and they can try to overcome those limitations and challenges. It can be viewed. So that is my point of view.
Yeah, you're right, sir. In fact, normally we say as a consultant to any of our clients, we say there are constraints which is there in any of the management system implementation per se. If you are implementing a management system in a company like a startup company, there are constraints which has to be looked into, and for that the capacity and the capability building, the focus should be there on the capacity and the capability building of the gap, whatever that is there, that should be made up. So for improving the capacity and the capability building exercise, really in complying with the regulatory requirements, what should be the approach of any startup company of building their own capacity and capability? Can any of the panelists throw light upon that as to how to build that capacity and the capability building for addressing these regulatory requirements?
Yeah, I'll be addressing this. Yeah, startups, most of the regulations are more related to health, safety, environment, information security, and all. So breach of these laws, even labor laws, can crush image of a startup. So compliance, these regulations will always help them to avoid the liabilities. So an organization or a startup, they can have a process or a methodology how to identify, maintain, update. The precise thing is because a lot of regulations are keep on getting revised and changed. So they should have a methodology or try to subscribe some newsletters or use some subject matter experts or watch what is happening around us. So that will help us to address a methodology. Then when they design anything, when they consider any process, consider these regulatory requirements as one of the input, one of the process input, so that while monitoring process output, they will ensure they are meeting these compliances. So that's way they can establish a model or a methodology that will help them startups to meet those requirements.
Yeah, you're right. Compliance obligation, the knowledge about the compliance obligation, and latest updates, that is what is happening with the regulatory requirements, keeping abreast about the latest developments. In fact, it's required in any organization, and always we say yes, the organization must be dynamic in nature and should not be static. And of course, it's a lot of that awareness has now come on the fake certificates that what Annie ma'am has been highlighting to the audience here. How to really go about it when if it is a really painful exercise on the part of a startup company to later on realize that yes, whatever they have applied and approached and got a certificate is a fake. Uh, I think the effort that what they have taken and the money that what we have spent, ultimately the cost that is involved definitely it matters in complying with the regulatory requirements. In what way the systems can be made robust so that the startups can really get to know whether are they on the right path or not, and also the cost that what they spend on all these compliance part with respect to the regulatory requirements, is it really worthy enough or not? How to know about it? Are there any mechanism, or are there any advices for the audience here? Annie ma'am?
Yes, sir. As I said, before we identify a certification body for the service we are looking for, please ensure they are accredited. Request the CB to share their accreditation, the certificate that they have from whichever board, if it is NABCB or another international equivalent, UCAS used to be a very popularly known or the first ones to establish accreditation services in India, since early 1990s. So, and then we need to go to the accreditation board's website. If you look at NABCB website, is very clearly identified under which scheme. If it is QMS, which are those certification bodies which are currently active. Some CBs discontinue their services for whichever reason, whatever reason it could be. So go to the website and see that they are accredited and valid active right now. And then you will find the certification bodies, the address, their contact person details, and proceed in that manner. In fact, you have a doubt, please, NABCB Secretariat is also very active in responding. You could just drop in a mail and ensure that they're accredited. Similar holds if you take an international accreditation also, if you're going for UCAS, you can write to them or check up with the UCAS website. Generally, the certificates also are put up. Which certification body is accredited? So identify the standard first. If you're going for an ISO 9001, a general one, or we said environment kind of EMS, it could be, or if it is 13485 now, which is for medical devices currently, look up the scheme and identify the certification body before you initiate any activity. Yes, that would be my
Thank you.
recommendation.
Thank you for that valuable input, madam. Last one round of comments from all the panelists about how a startup company, where to start actually, where is the starting point for all this complying the regulatory part, or knowing the regulatory part, or implementing it, or getting to know whether it is a fake one or a genuine one. How actually a startup company, where it has to start actually? What's the method that they have to adopt so that it's an easy way of doing things?
Yeah,
Where to
maybe.
start? Actually?
Yeah, maybe comments from me, and of course, others also may have their own views. Startup, of course, initial challenge will be they have to establish the business, and they need to have is a customer, a bunch of services what they are offering, and they need to ensure their position first. So they're giving priority equally for establishing a system or a process would be challenging. But always when it comes to this question, the priority, you start with how you can look at priority, and you can also go for system establishment or a process establishment in a phased manner. So what is immediately asked by your customer and what is really required for your product or the service what you are offering in the market. For that, what is the immediate requirement and how do you do consistently right from the beginning? You can start it in a phased manner, system implementations. We tell many of the client also that certification is not a like an award. Someone has implemented successfully the management system. It is more of an entry criteria for getting into management system journey. And a company which normally requires a 3-year period to just come with complete designed management system for their own business. So that is a normal time frame. Of course, this context would vary for a different business. If it is a IT business, then probably the context would vary, the duration will vary. But basically, we try to see a phased manner approach and start recognizing priorities, addressing the customer need. In that phased manner approach, if they look at management system establishment or a process establishment, would be an integrated approach, which is also very important because sometimes startups may try to look at business priority and system and process would be traveling in a different track. So this is if it is not integrated right from the beginning, then you also find the system itself is going to be a limitation or a challenge over a period of time when they are growing. So this they can avoid by start looking at priorities and looking at a phased manner approach of system implementation.
I have a point to add.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in fact, people instead of taking all of these certification standard implementations as a kind of on the cost perspective, I think in India, cost plays a huge role with respect to anything. So I think be it software, be it anything, I think that they try to do the same thing for when it comes to standards and certifications, or even this management system implementation or management consultants hiring, etc. So I think this is one part. Maybe on the other parts they can try to cut down costs, cut corners, etc. But when they cut corners on these kind of things, it's going to be very explicit. So they are going to hire somebody from the cottage industry. So there is a huge cottage industry, which I think Annie and many others pointed out. They may not be even really eligible to provide certifications. They may not be able even having any right affiliations with the NABCP. So those kind of guys, when you just get the certification for the sake of certification, it's not going to add any fundamental value to the business. And I think people, I think should not compromise on the cost part and hire the right certification agency to implementation partners or consultants to kind of get the whole certification journey going on or standard journey going on, rather than kind of look at the cost aspect. That's my add.
Any other panelists want to add
the
anything?
steps the startups can consider just to determine their product and services. If it's a B2B company, talk to your customers, try to understand the applicable regulatory requirements. If it's a B2C, you focus the which country you are going to do business, or check with the applicable ministries. There are plenty of information available in digital platforms, or talk to subject matter experts, reach NABCBs, reach a consultant consortium of Chennai, the multiple players available. Then have a watch it, because keep on things are getting changed. A lot of agreements or a lot of regulations are getting revised. So they have to consider these processes as a startups. That's what I would like to add.
Yeah, it's a valid point, Karthik. Madam, you want to add anything, madam? Annie, madam?
Not specifically. I guess that comment is, there. If you have any questions, you could let me know.
Yeah, I think fairly all the points has been covered in the panel discussion, starting from the regulatory requirements, how much it is important for adding value, exactly adding value to the organization itself and adding value to the product or the service, whatever the organizations provide to their own customers or clients, which will in fact is a marketing tool for them to expand their market by just complying to the regulatory requirements and keeping it updated. That itself will pave more market for their own products, and that's the experience that what has been shared by many of the experienced people, and it actually it applies to the startups also. In fact, when Mr. Shan was sharing that many startups have expanded their activity, and their market is huge, and it is global now. Really, it was a very welcoming, and it was a very encouraging thing to hear that from him, and that's a fact, in fact. And uh, the only underlying point here, which is now outlined by all the panelists in unison, is the regulatory requirements must be complied with, whether we like it or not. It's going to be the order of the day, and identifying the genuine accreditation bodies and identifying the genuine certification bodies and the certificates is the duty of every startup companies and consultants, professional consultants and CCC members like us. We are there to help you to come out of all these fake things and tread a very successful journey in complying with the regulatory requirements. And with this concluding remark, now I hand over the session back to Rama ma'am for further deliberations. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you to Ramkumar sir and to all the panelists and for the wonderful insights. Any specific question and answer, questions from the audience, or we can just maybe about 5-10 minutes we can allocate for the Q&A. Any specific questions from the audience, please, you can unmute yourself and then maybe you can ask one by one specific questions. So no questions? Saurav, you're there, Saurav? So if there are no questions from the audience, then I guess we can conclude the session. And I hope you all liked today's session, and would like to thank all the speakers and the wonderful audience. And so as from TiE Chennai, we will be doing regular engagements on this conformity assessment framework. Specific, very focused sessions also we will organize. So we will keep inviting you all for all the future sessions. And so young businesses and entrepreneurs, they need to understand the regulations very thoroughly first, if the business that they are in is a regulated business. And then they should know like what's happening. It's not just the regulations in our country, but in the importing countries. Like Mr. Shanmugh said, most of the startups are doing global business. So when you're in a global markets and global business, your products and services, you have to understand the regulations of your importing countries also, which is also very important. So we'll keep doing more and more sessions. We will invite you all. Thank you so much for your presence today and for being part of this engagement and initiative. Looks like Saurav is not to be traced, so maybe we can just wind up the session.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
You're there? Sorry, sorry. No, I know that you got logged out, actually. I was just checking. Maybe you can do the concluding remarks, Saurav.
Yes, ma'am. So on behalf of TiE Chennai, I would like to thank all the speakers for taking your time for TiE Chennai's community and educating us about the importance of standards. I would also like to thank Ms. Rama Venugopal for helping us organize a wonderful session today. DQS and Consultants Consortium of Chennai have also supported and helped us host this event. Thanks to the participants for staying with us throughout the session. And thank you. We'll be hosting more events on standards very soon. We'll keep you updated on it. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.